Hello everyone, and welcome back to our series on Star Trek time travel. In part 2 we're going to be talking about all Voyager, which has plenty of examples of time travel for us to look at. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first example occurs right after the pilot in Parallax, the first episode after Caretaker, where Voyager receives a distress call from a ship that's apparently trapped inside a quantum singularity. However, they later figure out that it is just a time-delayed version of themselves. Following right after that, in the episode Time and Again, Voyager discovers a planet that has been devastated by an explosion, and while investigating, Janeway and Paris are pulled back in time, but just before the explosion has happened. And they learn that it was Voyager's attempt to rescue them that actually triggered the disaster. When the explosion is prevented, the timeline is reset, with apparently only Cass remembering what had happened. Also in the first season, we have the episode Eye of the Needle, where Voyager is excited to discover a small wormhole that apparently leads back to the Alpha Quadrant. They make contact with a Romulan ship in the Alpha Quadrant, captained by Dr. Telekramor. Initially, they plan to beam the crew through the wormhole back to the Alpha Quadrant, leaving Voyager behind. However, they discover that this wormhole also has a temporal component, in that it travels 20 years back in time. So ultimately, they are left with the only option of leaving some messages for Dr. Ramor to deliver to the Federation at the time after they disappear. Now, after Dr. Ramor goes back to his ship, Tuvok reveals that the Doctor passed away a few years before Voyager was lost in the Delta Quadrant, and it seems that no messages were passed on to the Federation. Voyager had a couple of run-ins with 29th century technology. First of all, in the episode Future's End, the time ship Aeon arrives, with Captain Braxton informing Voyager that they are apparently responsible for a huge explosion that destroyed Earth's solar system in the 29th century, and because of that he's going to destroy them so this can't happen. In the end, both Voyager and Captain Braxton end up in 20th century Earth, where Henry Starling discovers Captain Braxton's technology, and Voyager has to prevent him from going back to the future, which is what actually triggers the big explosion. Also in the episode Relativity, first 7 of 9 and later Captain Janeway are sent through time by the Relativity's temporal transporters to prevent someone from destroying Voyager, who also turns out to be a disgruntled Captain Braxton. In the episode Before and After, a combination of Chronitons in a Bio-temporal chamber are apparently sending Kess's consciousness gradually back in time from near the end of her life, eventually to her time of her birth, before the situation resolves itself. And related to this, we have the episode Year of Hell, where the Krenim scientist Anorax developed a temporal weapon ship capable of removing objects or entire civilizations from existence, as if they had never been part of the timeline. His original intention was to restore the Krenim Imperium to power, but an unfortunate side effect was the loss of a colony where his family lived, and he has spent centuries since then doing incursion after incursion to try to bring them back unsuccessfully, before he tangles with Voyager. In the episode Timeless, Voyager experiments with a new propulsion technology, the quantum slipstream drive, in an attempt to get back home. However, there is a catastrophic accident, and Voyager crashes with the loss of all hands, except for Chakotay and Harry Kim, who were able to ride the Delta Flyer all the way back to the Alpha Quadrant. 15 years later, these two crew members, feeling guilt over their survival, had she planned to use a Borg temporal transmitter to send a message back to 7 of 9 in order to prevent the accident. In the episode Fury, Cass returns to the show and she is not in a good mood. So we see a combination of a warp core and a crazy Ocampan, leading to Cass, the older version, traveling back in time to try to execute revenge on Voyager, who she blames for how she's ended up, before the crew is able to figure out a way to calm her down with the help of the younger version of herself. In yet another encounter with a temporal anomaly in the episode Shattered, the Voyager is broken up into 37 different time periods across the ship, which originally only Chakotay is able to pass between due to a special treatment he received from the Doctor. Most of these time periods are from Voyager's past, although there is at least one from the future where Chakotay and Janeway encounter the grown-up Icheb and Naomi Wildman. To no one's surprise, the main deflector is the key ingredient to healing Voyager's temporal fractures. And last but not least, we have Endgame, the finale of Voyager. Admiral Janeway, in the future, although she got Voyager home successfully, feels guilt over some of the crew members who didn't make it, and finds a Chrono Deflector device invented by a Klingon and uses that to travel back in time to try to get Voyager home sooner. Now that covers all the instances of time travel in Voyager. Was there any others that you think I should have included? Feel free to leave some suggestions down in the comments. Next time we'll be covering Enterprise, which with the temporal Cold War has plenty more examples of time travel to discuss. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a blessed day.